I'll watch what I say. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. What I'm going to share with you, a long time ago, back when Methuselah was a pup, I mentioned to somebody about something and I just said, you know, life is a rough draft. The next thing I know, I see that quote in a journal. And I haven't been quoted much, so I thought my ego pumped out when I saw that. But I sort of, it almost sounds like a cynical comment in a way, but it's really not. It's, I don't believe that perfection exists. And so sometimes we do things and we have to reconnoiter and try to do things a little differently. So I put together a program called Creating a Future of Your Choice, Taking the Initiative, Work-Life Balance. And this is an excerpt from that class, and I call it Life is a Rough Draft. And it's to get you thinking. Some of the exercises you're going to see in here, you've seen before. But I want to talk about two general things. How do we get out of balance? How do we get out of balance and we get out of kilter? And then our perspective. And then what can we do to get back in balance, to keep a perspective and to keep a healthy focus on things as best we can? And I'm not a motivational speaker. In fact, I really have a real problem with that term. I think people motivate themselves. So my goal here is to share some things with you that if they work and it helps you get your fulcrum straight back on perspective, fine. And we'll see what happens with it. If you would though, if you go to page, if you have your hand out, page 2, I have a quote from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And does everybody have that? You can do a thumbs up if you do a reaction down at the bottom. You see the reactions down at the bottom? If you have that helps me know that you do. But I'd like you to go ahead and read about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland when she comes to a fork in the road. Go ahead and do that.
And for folks who may not have the workbook right now, I'm actually working on getting it on our CPDC website. So I'll send the link once it's all ready. So
you want me to go ahead and read it?
Sure, I think that'll be wonderful.
Okay. You know, I don't have my glasses on here, gang. In Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Alice comes to a fork in the road. Not knowing which way to go, she asks the Cheshire Cat, who she sees resting on the limb of an oak tree, would you please show me which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to go, says the cat. I don't much care, says Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, says the cat. And there's a quote, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. If you do know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else, but you'll be closer to where you wanted to be. And when I call this life as a rough draft, what can I do to be closer to where I want to be? But I have to be somewhat aware of where that is. I just can't take any fork. Although sometimes that can be an adventure that leads to an education. But what I'd like you to do is think about the fork. And so what I have on the next page is an outline of the full Taking the Initiative Work-Life Balances workshop. And what I'm going to do is take some excerpts out of that because we have 90 minutes. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is possibilities. I'm going to use something that a gentleman named John Perry taught me called the concept of the 4 C's, which I mentioned in passing in one of my workshops I did for this college last month. Staying in balance, how to lose balance and how to get balance back. And what I mean by is just balance in perspective. And then making it work, what to do, that's time management. We could do a whole nother class on that. But then I'm going to go down and talk a little bit about some of the things that cause you stress and 10 things you can do to deal with daily stress and strain and how to take responsibility for balance. So I'm going to try to have some fun with that. I'm going to ask you to play some fun and games and we'll see what happens with that. Okay? Still want to stay? Put a thumbs up if you still want to stay. How many are getting paid today? You can still enjoy yourself, okay? Page 4, the concept of the 4 C's. This is about accountability. I'm gonna go to the share screen and go to the whiteboard here. There we go. And go through the 4 C's with you. And the first C is choice. Whoops, chance, excuse me. How many here decided when you were going to be born? Give me a thumbs up. How many here decided when you were going to be born? Anybody? I'll do this with middle school kids. They say, I did, you know, that kind of thing. Well, the honest answer to that is none of us decided when we were going to be born. We had some influence in the moment, but we didn't decide. We're here by chance. And that does not mean that we're an accident, okay, or that kind of thing. Or if you feel like you've been put on this earth for a greater purpose spiritually, I'm not arguing that, but you didn't decide when to be born. And if you're like I am, and you are, because you're part of the great contradiction, all people are alike in different ways, you were born into a set of circumstances, and that's the second C. And that set of circumstances you were born into, you had no control over. Who your parents were, where you were born, income level you were born into, who your brothers and sisters were. You had no choice in that. What happens is that's the hand you were dealt when you showed up on the good old planet here. Here's the bad news. The bad news about chance and circumstance is they reflect the past. In other words, you can't go back and undo the circumstances of your birth. That's the hand you were dealt. If somebody yelled at you this morning at work, or you had to deal with a difficult customer, guess what? There's nothing you can do to go back and change that. It happened. It's in the past. If you said something you wish you hadn't, or if you did something that maybe create the stress that if you have any right now, you can't go back and undo it because the past has happened. And that's the chance and circumstances, not only of our birth, but of our daily life. That's why I call it life is a rough draft, because those circumstances, 2 hours from now, we don't know what our circumstance may be. We may have a plan for that circumstance, but it may not happen. So those are the first two C's. In fact, by the way, if we were in small groups, I don't know if we can do that here. I could tell you about the story of my journey to this point in time, from the time I was born, just based on those two. And I think it's important for us to share our stories about our journey, because it helps us, one, get it out there, and two, we can listen to each other and find out some things about our colleagues or even people at home that don't even realize that we don't know. Let me give you a story. We were in I think it's went bankrupt. Is there a place you used to call Soup Plantation? Soup Plantation? So I've been married 49 years, okay? And so is my wife. We've been married the same amount of time. And we were in a soup plantation. This is about 3 years ago, up in Oxnard. We were coming home from visiting her uncle. And we stopped in. And if you've ever been in one of those, they got a salad bar. And so we start with the salad bar, and I put the lettuce and and I get to the beets. And I just cover my salad with beets. And she says, "What are you doing that for?" And I said, "Well, I don't use salad dressing." So I said, "Well, it takes the place of salad dressing, and I love beets." And she said, "You don't like beets?" I said, "I love beets." She said, "We've been married all this time. You never have told me that you like beets." And I says, "Well, I'm not into food that much, so I never mention it." "You like beets?" And so after 46 years of marriage, she found out that I like beets. And she found out a little bit about my journey. Here's my point. I'm not going to get into my marriage, but what happens is that sometimes, even when we've been around people a long time, the chance and circumstances of their journey may not be something that we're aware of. And we hear about that journey, it may change the way we view, the way we look at people. So if you go to the cupboard in our kitchen, there's usually 6 to 8 cans of beets always sitting there now that never sat there before. Okay? And I could get more serious about the journey, but I don't want to do that today. So you're going to see a quote. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, nor all your piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash out a word of it. Omar Khayyam, that's a fancy way of saying you can't cry over spilt milk. Okay, what's happened, happened. However, let's go to the next two C's. We have choices. Choices in how we deal with those circumstances. And those choices, did I spell that right? And those choices will always lead to at least one consequence. And the good news about this, if I can work the screen here for you. The good news about this is this reflects the future. So I call this life as a rough draft because the future's in my hands. And I'm going to make sure that, and let me say one other thing, the future's going to happen with or without my involvement. So what I want to do is get involved in my future by choosing options that lead to consequences that are in my best interest. So the subject of this class is work-life balance and putting yourself in balance. What options are available to us? By the way, choice is an abstract concept if you don't feel if you have options. What options are available that will lead to a consequence that'll help us deal with the day, deal with others, and do those kinds of things. That's the basis for all this. And I'm going to refer to the 4 C's a few times as we go through the time we have left to show you how it works in terms of accountability, how it works in terms of choosing a future of your choice, and 3, how it creates a focus for you and hope so you can move on and move ahead, and no matter what you do. Okay? Any questions? Joe, you know why? Joe, you know why? Pardon me?
I don't believe so far, but let me actually take this time to actually embed the link to today's PDF, the workbook for today's session. So,
okay.
So for those who do not have today's workbook, I'm actually putting it in the chat function right now.
Oh, I see it right there.
All right, go for it, Forrest.
You got to show me how to do that later. Okay. Turn the page. Keeping balance and 5 ways to lose balance. I've got 5 ways we can lose balance, get out of kilter, get our perspective. I saw a quote the other day. Your perspective can be your prison or your passport. And so sometimes when we lose balance, we lock ourselves into thinking. I know I do a job interview skills class where people are, well, I'm not as qualified as they are. Well, what does that mean? And they're saying, well, they're probably going to get the job because they're better at it than I am. Well, what does that mean? And I keep saying to them, what they're saying, they're putting themselves in that prison as opposed to using their experience and background and passion and whatever it may be to create a passport to try to get that job, because sometimes they won't even apply. Again, and because of self-talk. So having said that, let me go back to the share screen, the good old whiteboard. Bear with me too on this whiteboard. It's a right-handed whiteboard and I'm left-handed. So sometimes I don't get it right, okay? But what you have, if you go to the top of page 5, you have some things that look like this. I gotta find it. Whoops, that's not it. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna try to recreate those 9 dots. I had a Subway sandwich for lunch and I'm out of balance. This is the only thing I create today on this screen, so you're lucky. What I would like you to do is take a pen or pencil, and I would like you to put the 9 dots, if you don't have the handout, on a sheet of paper in the same configuration as I have there. And I would like you to connect all 9 of those dots with 4 straight lines without removing your pen or pencil from the paper. Connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines without removing your pen or pencil from the paper. You can crisscross, but you can't lift up the pen. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to figure this out. If you need another, I put 3 sets of dots in your handout in case it doesn't work the first time. How many have seen this and forgot? Okay. I'm going to give you the answer in 5 seconds here. How many got it? Thumbs up if you got it. There we go. I got to get a line here for you. Let's see how this works. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And there's 4. What makes that difficult to solve? Turn on your audio and share your thoughts. What makes it difficult to solve? Anybody?
Your presumptions that you're supposed to stay within the total area of the dots.
Yeah, the sort of stay in the box, right? And the irony of that, I don't know if it's an irony, is there's no box there. But what does our mind do? It creates one. And so my point in trying to have some fun with this, and if nothing else, you can win money at happy hour with this. But my point is that one of the ways we get out of balance is number one, if you're taking a list here, is we impose boundaries. We impose boundaries that don't exist. Okay? We put things around it that we say it can't be done. We put the box there, if you will. And we impose boundaries on problem solving. We impose boundaries on our skills and our abilities. We put boundaries on other people. So boundaries, I know I do, because I can have some negative self-talk. So I have the quote from Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We do not see the world as it is, but we are as we are in it. So that's a way to lose perspective. Now, number 2, it says count the F's in the statement below. You with me there? And I'd like you to just do this on your own and just there's a place where you put your answer. Just count the F's in that statement. Okay, I'm going to stop you. How many see 3 F's? Okay. How many see 4? How many see 5? Some of you. And how many see 6? Because I'm here to tell you there are 6 F's in that statement. You have to look at the word of. Okay, so what happens, go back to text here. Number 2 is we miss the obvious. We miss the obvious. That's number 2. Where the boxes, we put boundaries in, we don't see, we impose something that's not there. Number 2 is we don't see something that is. Okay, sometimes it's our own potential. We don't see that. And what happens is we miss the obvious. And I have the quote, the perception of a problem is always relative. Your headache feels terrific to the druggist because they're going to sell you aspirin. And so again, sometimes we might see something that's not of value when it really is. We miss the obvious. How many here, you've ever got up in the morning, maybe you're better at organizing your day than I am, and you can't find your keys, okay? And you're looking all over for those darn keys. And I'll say to my wife, you see my keys? Yeah, they're right over there. Didn't you see them? And they're in plain sight. But you're looking over it, okay? And we miss the obvious, all right? And that's why I really have a problem, and maybe it's my age, with this addiction we have to urgency today. We're so busy, well, maybe with the pandemic we've slowed down a little bit, but we got to go to our text. We got to go to how come you didn't answer me right away? I texted you 5 minutes ago. And sometimes we're so busy attaching importance to things that aren't important that sometimes we miss the obvious. That's also an editorial on my part, okay? Next page. Never, I'd like you to, if you could turn on your live sound right now, if that's possible. Never buy a pig in a poke. A poke is a sack, and it's an old saying, you never buy a pig in a, can you yell out poke?
Poke.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Is that you, Drew? Thank you very much, Drew. You're making me feel like I'm, okay. You never buy a pig in a poke. I don't have the full screen up here right now. In fact, let me just go back to that. You never buy a pig in a poke, okay? A person with money is, a person without money is
broke.
Or
broke.
Broke.
See how that works? So never buy a pig in a poke. A person without money is broke. A person with a cigarette will
Smoke.
smoke, okay? See, it's real easy. So never buy a pig in a
Broke.
poke. A person without money is
Broke.
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 A person with a cigarette will
smoke.
smoke. A funny story is a
Joke.
popular drink is a,
Coke.
and the
Coke.
white of the egg is the
Yolk.
Coke.
Yolk.
yolk. And so now we get it. Number 3. I'm not going to go back. Put down habit. Put down habit. Number 1 was missing the obvious. Number 1 was imposing boundaries. Number 2 was missing the obvious. Number 3 is we get into habits. And you just got into the habit of rhyming to where you came up with the white of the egg is the yolk and the white of the egg is not the yolk. Okay. I'm not here to slap you around, but what happens, we do get into habits, and habits can lead us down the wrong road, and we get out of perspective. You can win some money happy hour with that one, especially when somebody's had a few drinks, okay? The next one, how to lose balance. Let me see if I can, I'm going to try to draw some lines here. Here's one. This is, I'm trying to recreate what you have on your screen there. There's 2. And over here is that one. Not too bad, really. Sort of proud of myself for doing that, all right? How many ever seen The Lone Ranger or Batman? Batman and Robin, Lone Ranger. Superman, the A-Team. What are some of these things you see on TV all the time? But what happens in every one of those shows, there is a villain. Whoops. And in every one of those shows, there is a victim. And in every one of those shows, the victim is always looking for a hero to come down, capture the villain, and save the day. And they ride off into the sunset. This, by the way, if I could use some abbreviations, is called the dramatic triangle. Okay, it's the dramatic triangle. A screenplay, a drama. My wife wrote screenplays for 14 years. It's got to have a hero, a villain, and a victim. But what never happens in those shows, okay, is the hero rarely, if ever, comes down here and teaches the victim how to take care of the villain themselves. So go back to the concept of the 4 C's. The first C was chance. The second C was circumstance. The third C was choice. Well, if I have a situation where I'm stressed out or I want to do something, I want a goal or whatever it may be, let me give you another analogy. Life is sort of like a sidewalk. You trip, you fall down. So what do? What would you do? You trip and you fall down.
Get back up.
Yeah, you get back up. And you know what? Sometimes life body slams us to the ground. It's hard to get back up, right? Here's what victims do. They don't get back up. They're down there where they have the option to, but instead of choosing the option to get back up, they just blame their circumstances. You made me do it. It's your fault, okay? They don't get back up and try to improve their situation or move on to a better future. They want to blame their circumstances, and they lay on the sidewalk and blame the world around them. And so the third way that we get out of perspective, the fourth way, excuse me, is we stay the victim. And that's number 4. How to lose balance, be the victim. It's everybody else's fault. It's management's fault. I'm not saying that they didn't have influence, that they didn't help cause the problem, but when I'm saying it's their fault and I choose not to do anything about it, then I'm giving up and I'm really not going to create any kind of future of my choice. And the other thing about getting back up off the sidewalk, how many ever joined a gym? You wanted to get in shape. How many of you actually went? I mean, hopefully you did. But my point is, sometimes getting back up off the sidewalk is hard to do. It's very difficult to do. And that's why I really sort of bristle when somebody says, I'm a self-made man. Baloney. All of us had a hand up somehow. I don't know if everybody needs a hand out, but they certainly do need a hand up to get up off the sidewalk. If nothing more than encouragement, education, whatever it may be, it can help you get up off the sidewalk. So what do? We impose boundaries. We miss the obvious, okay? We get into habits and we become the victim and blame our circumstances as opposed to choosing options to do something about it. And the fifth one, and the last one on the next page, I borrowed from, I think this is out of Stephen Covey, but let me go back here. In that first box, where it says act on and can control, if you act on the things you can control, put in that box the word mastery. You can get really good at it. Okay? If you don't act on the things you can't control, going down to the bottom, then you merely quit. Or you never start. You never begin. Okay? There's things you can control that you can act on and create mastery, and there's things you can't control that you don't act on or you merely quit. Maybe, and that's okay, never to begin or to quit. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe it's just not your cup of tea. Maybe you thought you'd give it a try, and after you gave it a try, it didn't seem to work out for you anymore. Okay? But the things you can control, you can create mastery. Next box. There are things that you act on that you cannot control, and that's called ceaseless, let me put it over here. Ceaseless striving. Ceaseless striving. So you start up your car, the engine's running, and the gear shift is in neutral. Where are you going? Where are you going if the gear shift's in neutral and the engine's running?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. But what are you going to be burning up?
Gasoline.
Gasoline and energy, okay? The last box. You don't act on the things you cannot control, and that's called letting go. So I'm going to pick one of these on how to lose balance, and the one that you need to choose for number 5 is ceaseless striving. acting on the things you cannot control. I'm doing a workshop next month, I think next week, for your group here, called Self-Advocacy, Dealing with a Difficult Boss. And we've all had difficult bosses, and maybe I've been a boss, I've been a difficult boss. But one of the things I learned is I can't change my boss. I really can't change other people. And if I try, how come you don't like doing that? Everybody likes doing that. Well, what? Because I don't like doing it. Well, you should like it. What you're trying to do is change people, and it's ceaseless striving. You're just going to get frustrated. My sister, she's passed on. She and I were pretty tight, okay? And she always, and our politics were like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And I'd say something to her, and she said, "You're making me mad." Okay, you're making me mad. And I tell her, "Marilyn, I'm not making you mad. You're choosing to get mad. I'm not trying to be psycho fluff on you. You're making me mad." And so we used, up until the day she left us, we always teased about that because we started that when we were younger. And we never made each other mad, but we said things, okay, that the other person didn't like. But trying to change us, it's pretty difficult to do. An oak's an oak and a pine is a pine. Now, you can change our opinion with education and information. Don't get me wrong. But who you are is who you are. An oak's an oak and a pine is a pine. And that's called ceaseless striving. So 5 ways to lose perspective, just 5 here that I want to harp on a little bit with you. Imposing boundaries, missing the obvious, habits, okay, being a victim, and ceaseless striving. Okay? So having said that, let me go back to where I can see everybody's little box with your name in it. Go to the next page. Page 8. On page 8, I have 73 reasons for a closed mind. Go ahead and read some of those. Just further, these things sort of keep you out of perspective too. Go ahead. Don't read all 73. Just pick a few. My particular favorite on here is number 64. That's what I call the blank stare, that kind of thing. Number 16 is interesting because we've never done it before. And the one that follows, number 16, is we've never done it before. 72 comes after 35, but who cares? And when I was a boss, my staff always used to use number. We had something like this at staff meetings, and we just throw out the numbers. Oh, that's a 73. Okay. You work in government. You work in education. You know what you hear a lot of times where you work? And I have never worked. Well, I was taught at a community college for 25 years. But at night, 2 nights, Monday and Tuesday night, like clockwork. What I hear in education systems is number 44. Okay, so it's okay if I tease you a little bit? All right. Next page. And by the way, you just photocopy this page now when you go to staff meeting, just pass it out and throw out the numbers. Saves you a lot of time. Saves you a lot of time. I have something that most of my work's on leadership and supervision. And most leadership happens at the entry-level positions, not at the top. Most leadership happens at the entry-level positions. Leadership's about inspiring commitment. Managing is about ensuring compliance. And it happens at all levels. But I have the importance of vision. And I'm going to call it vision, a direction, a focus, a reach, a goal, that kind of thing. And what's the importance of, and you see the first bullet is direction, and the colon next to that, direction, put the word direction after that. The importance of vision is it gives you direction, okay? But I'm gonna add some words to the other one. The next one, it gives you drive. And what drive is you do more than you have to do to get to where you need to go. You have drive because you have a goal and you're gonna stick to it. It gives you the drive. How many of you ever had a goal that you want to really accomplish and you didn't let it go? You kept the drive alive, even if some people around you were saying, hey, what are you doing that for? You had the drive to do it. It might have been getting a certificate in something. It could have been running a marathon. It could have, whatever it may be. But I'm standing here with a knee brace from running, but I I've run a lot of marathons. In fact, one of the last ones I ran was I finished right there in Santa Monica on a rainy day. I'll never forget it, but never mind. That's another story. But what do you want to do that for? What do you want to do that for? Well, I don't know if I have to have a reason, but I like doing it. I like the people I'm around. I enjoy the physical activity. It makes me feel better about my body, about me. It feeds my ego a little bit, but whatever it may be, that's why I like doing it. Well, is it difficult? Yeah, especially when you don't want to lace them up in the morning and go work out. But if you have that goal and that goal is important to you, you have the drive. Okay? That's why having some sense of goal, even if it's a things to do list for the day, it doesn't have to be like running a marathon. I don't do those anymore anyway. I don't know how smart it was in the first place. But what happens is that if that's your drive, I bring that up because it's my wife. She's a stickler for a things to do list. She's a retired middle school teacher and middle school principal and teacher. And she did that without becoming an alcoholic. I was very proud of her. But what happens is that it's important to have that drive. Now, discipline is doing the things you don't want to do and you have to do, because it's not a perfect world. And so sometimes you have to do things, you have to work with people, and you need the discipline to stick to it. And that's what vision does. And the last one, it gives you hope. Hope. And again, if you want to put something after that, motivation. Without hope, there's no motivation. So go back to that person lying on the sidewalk. They're lying on the sidewalk. And I mentioned choice is an abstract concept. If you don't feel as if you have options, sometimes they're laying on the sidewalk because they have no hope. Okay? But when they have hope, the chances of them having some motivation to get back up grows. And that's why having a clear sense of who you are and where you want to go. And I'm not talking about planning every day. I had a guy that worked for me, and I went by his office at 8 o'clock. I said, "Hey, Dave, what you doing?" "Planning my day." Okay, good. And 8:30, I walk by. "Hey, Dave, what's going on? What are you doing?" I'm not checking on him. He's in a cubicle, planning my day. About 9:30, "Hey, Dave, what you doing?" "Planning my day." I said, "Dave, planning without doing is meditation." But I go camping with this guy, and if I forget the corkscrew, he has 4. I said, "Don't you like some spontaneity?" He says, "As long as it's planned." So again, I do think you need to have some flexibility, but I do think a sense of vision, I keep hearing bells ring somewhere. But vision is made up of forward thinking, the other 2 C's, right? Seeing beyond the present, creativity, seeing potential that others don't see, both big and small, and optimism, knowing that the outcome is possible against all odds. What the guy that invented the artificial heart, his name just, Robert Jarvik, he said, "Leaders are visionaries with a poorly developed sense of fear and no concept of the odds against them." Okay, so that's forward thinking. And I have some stuff on vision that you can read there, but I do think I have the Joseph Campbell quote at the bottom. "Lots of people spend their lives climbing a ladder, and when they get to the top, they discover they climbed the wrong wall." So again, having a sense of vision and direction. Life's a rough draft. It won't always be there for you. You have to come back. You have to adjust. You have to move. If you setting a goal, Isabel and I had a close friend, John Perry, and he was an aeronautical research engineer and physicist for NASA. And he literally helped design and get people to the moon. He worked with Neil Armstrong and people like that. And when you fly to New York, if you go to LAX, get on a plane, and you fly to New York, guess what? It's never going in the right direction. It's never heading directly towards Kennedy Airport. Along the way, it's going to have to make adjustments. And the computer does that because the goal is to land at the airport. But getting there, sometimes you have to make adjustments because the course isn't true the whole time. And I do think that's in goal setting. That's why vision that gives you drive and discipline is so important, because it helps you finally get to where you want to go, or as close to where you want to go as you can get. Okay? So it's not all about being perfect. And I bring that up because sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that kind of thing. Next page. The Machiavelli quote. It must be considered that there's nothing more difficult to carry out, no more difficult for success, no more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. So let's talk a little bit about a new order of things. And what we're gonna have to do here is I'm gonna suspend talking for a couple of minutes as we go along. And I'd like you to think of some things that might be useful for you in terms of setting goals. So I mentioned the 5 things that get us out of perspective, out of kilter, okay, get us off the wrong road. But I have 4 things that I think is important to think about, and I'm generalizing greatly here in the 90 minutes that we have. And I call perspective, autonomy, staying connected, health, and tone. And I borrowed these from a woman who's a class I went to a good 40 years ago. And I sat there and I said, yeah, this is what I need. And so what I do when I'm not lying on the sidewalk blaming people is when I want to get up, I try to think of these 4 things. And I even used to use a visualization board. But number 1 is perspective. How can I get back in balance? Perspective. We define what that is in a minute. Autonomy, some sense of freedom over my decisions. Staying connected, staying in touch with people who are important, and health and tone. And you'll see the half circle up there. I have in the middle balance, that's balance. Over on the left is rust out. That's not giving a damn, not caring. Perspective is nothing I can do about it. Sort of like a pessimist. Pessimism may have some value, but the cynical person, cynicism doesn't have any value. But autonomy, and then burnout is perspective to where you just you've got to know everything and see everything. It just you're obsessed with it, and sometimes that can create too much in the sense that you have to be right about everything. You have to be correct and that kind of thing. But having a healthy perspective, and having a healthy perspective comes with this: none of us have a monopoly on the truth. And so if you buy the fact that none of us have a monopoly on the truth, you can get more balanced in perspective, because you may see somebody thinking this way over here, and it just frustrates you to death because they better be thinking the way you think and see things the way you think. Again, perspective is having some balance, okay? Autonomy, that's being in control. Rust out, don't care. Nothing I can do about it. Burnout, you get obsessed with it. Staying connected is having healthy and relationships with the people around you, making sure you stay connected to the people who are important to you. You don't care, then you don't follow up. Then they're gone, then you can't follow up. Or you get so obsessed with it that you probably become a pest, okay, that kind of thing. Some sense of balance. And the last one's health and tone. Rust out, couch potato. Burnout, like what I did when I mentioned running. I was training, I had 60-mile weeks. 60-mile weeks. I mean, that's a lot of miles, okay? 6 days a week, and I rested on Monday. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, that kind of a schedule. And because I wanted to get my 5 and 10K times down where I was competitive and things like that. But I was obsessed with it. And what happens was I burn out. How many saw Forrest Gump? Movie Forrest Gump? Run, Forrest, run. Well, my name is Forrest, and he ran all those times, and then one day I stopped. I didn't run for about 5 years. Burn out completely. I've coached running, and now I have a simple, in fact, I have a little knee injury, first knee injury I've ever had, ever running, because running is a way to build up your knees. It's a way to build bone density. But it's going to be okay, but I knew what to do. But what happens is that if I can go out and do a 2 or 3 mile run, get in 20 to 30 minutes, 40 minutes, moderation, balance, as opposed to getting obsessed with it. Make sense? That's habits, how habits can be bad habits. So the only thing that stands between a person and what they want in life is the will to try and the faith to believe it's possible. So here's what I have. Here's what I would like you to do, to the extent that this has value for you. I have on page 12, autonomy, setting goals to achieve balance. Autonomy to me is a feeling in control. You're in control of your life. You can make decisions for yourself. It's a clear sense of your own identity. It's not a perfect sense of it, but you sort of growing comfortable in your own skin, a sense of freedom to make choices. You don't feel like tied down or there's an albatross around your neck. A feeling that you can set priorities and manage your own time, and a feeling that you possess good professional skills, which give you a life and career and job options. And we could probably go on with more definitions, but if you look at those, what must you do to be in balance or continue to stay in balance to accomplish those? Let me go to time management, a things to-do list. I'm getting as practical as that. Might be a way for you to stay in balance and keep perspective, but a sense of freedom to make choices. What I'd like you to do, and I'm going to watch the clock here, is spend 2 minutes. What must you do to be in balance or continue to stay in balance to keep a sense of autonomy? Okay, and I'm going to shut up and let you do that. Get some work done while we're here. Don't go say slap the boss around. In fact, I'm going to put on the timer. Write it out. You have 45 seconds left. I'm going to give you 30 more seconds because I was thinking of some stuff I had to do to stay in balance here while I'm talking. Okay. I want to suggest something to you. Let's make this timely. How many feel like, let me stop this stopwatch if I know how to do that. I'm learning how to operate. How many have a cell phone? A sense of control. Do you think during this darn pandemic that people feel like they don't have a sense of control? We're going through a time when there's change being imposed upon us that's hard to find that anybody likes. And what happens is we can stay on the sidewalk. And this happened to me. In fact, Isabel can attest to it because when the pandemic hit, it was March 7th, I think. I did my last in-person class in a hotel in Ventura. And I do a lot of workshops and a bit of coaching. And they started this social distancing policy. And I felt like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? I can't do workshops anymore. And now here I'm doing a workshop online. Okay. In fact, I even had some workshops planned for your college where I was going to come in and do them on site. And so people like Isabel and some other friends of mine started saying, well, why don't you do them online? And I said, I don't know anything about doing them online. And I don't know what Zoom is. I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. And I'm still learning. But again, what happens is I felt out of control. Now I feel like I'm back in control in terms of sort of an economic future, if nothing else, but also providing, this isn't work to me doing these workshops, although I am going to invoice Cyrus, okay? But it's not work to me. But what happens is that in the pandemic, one of the things that I started doing was getting dressed up in the morning like I was going to work. Even if I went to my office and there was nothing to do there. And then I found things to do. It's sort of like getting the haircut when the barbershop is open. What you have to do to feel in control is to get back into some sense of routine as best you can. And your routine may change, but you can create a routine. For example, I'm walking, okay? I'm doing some walking down by, I live in Long Beach, and with a friend of mine named Cheryl. And she's a massage therapist, and she deals with women who are expecting. She specializes in runners. She knows when you pull your ear, what muscles that affects in your body. She's got the whole 9 yards. And so we walk together. And what happens, especially on Saturday mornings, and we get into a routine because we got away from it. See how that works? And so that's how you start to feel like you're in control. Doesn't mean you can do all the things you could do before. I love going to the racetrack. Smell of a stable is like Chanel No. 5 to me, okay? When I'm around horses and stuff like that. Sunday, I'll be around horses because my son has 2 and I'll be at his house. But what happens is that the routine's gone. So you have to create a new routine. That's how you create a sense of autonomy. There's a Dobie Gray song that was written years ago, looking back and longing for the freedom of my chains. Remember that line? What a profound line, the freedom of your chains. Because sometimes that chain, that routine is not an albatross, but it gives you hope and focus that things are going to be okay. Staying connected, number 2. That's having positive relationships with family, friends, coworkers, supervisors, and one with yourself. Feeling an integral part of your environment, belonging to something bigger than yourself, a part of a team, a community, an organization, a cause worth fighting for. That's staying connected. It's like calling that person you haven't called in a while, go visiting somebody that you haven't visited in a while, those kinds of things. What I would like you to do is just take a couple of minutes. Remember the balance, rust out, burn out, staying connected. What are some things that you can do to get into balance or stay in balance? Or if you have to back off, that's the other side, to stay connected. Go ahead and just for a couple of minutes, create some mini vision for what that would look like. You could even put the name of somebody you'd like to go see, something you'd like to join. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that, and shut up while you do. Okay. How many had some stuff? Getting balanced? Stay connected? I had a trip to Florida planned in March. There's a woman there, her name is Helen. Helen is 94 years old. She and I used to work together. And so I was able to change my ticket, and I already have a date in January to go see her. We'll see if the pandemic, but Helen and I stay connected, talk on stuff like that. It's important to do that. I have a quote at the bottom of page 12 and a typo. Life is a rough draft, but I'm not so concerned about autonomy is a freedom to develop oneself, to increase one's knowledge, improve one's skills, and achieve responsibility for one's conduct. And it is freedom to lead one's own life, to choose among alternative courses of action, so long as no injury to others, that's where the typo is, that apostrophe shouldn't be there, as long as no injury to others results. And we're in a time now where everybody sort of has to do their part in a way. And how many read the book To Kill a Mockingbird? You got a thumbs up? Show me a thumbs up if you've read that book. Okay, so, okay. Some of you are literally showing me a thumb. I'm going to butcher the line, but there's a passage in the book where, and I think it was repeated in the movie too, but it must have been, but it's in the book where Jeb, the young boy, I think it's Jeb, he's out there shooting his rifle. And Atticus, his father, said, I know, even if I tell you not to, you're going to shoot birds. Okay? Not just tin cans. But if you shoot birds, shoot the blue jay.
We can't hear you, Forrest.
Am I muted? Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You want me to start over with that?
Yes, please.
I was talking about To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'm trying to equate it to today. I'll make this relevant. And in the book, there's a paragraph where he says to Jeb, his son, I know you're shooting tin cans, but I know you really want to shoot birds. But if you do shoot birds, shoot all the blue jays you want. But never shoot a mockingbird, because it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. That's where the title of the book comes up. So he goes back to Ms. Maudie, the housekeeper, and he said, Atticus has never talked about sin before, and blue jays. Why blue jays? Why not a mockingbird? And she said, mockingbirds sing beautiful music. All blue jays do is get in our garden, eat up the seeds, and ruin it. They get in our nests and tear the nests apart. I wrote a little essay not too long ago, just for myself, because that's how I get things out of my head. Don't laugh, okay? And I don't mean to offend you, but when the pandemic hit and people were hoarding toilet paper, I had difficulty understanding that, but I didn't cast judgment. But to me, they were the blue jays. They were in the aisle taking toilet paper and not leaving something for others, which the mockingbird would have done. And I do think when we talk about autonomy, I wanted to qualify number one. And I have that quote, as long as we don't hurt others, then I think autonomy is okay. But when it gets selfish, or it's not a sense of community or a sense of team at work, then I think we have an issue, because now it's all about being an individual from a selfish perspective, as one who's trying to create autonomy within the sense of community to doing the greater good for everybody. Editorial over, okay? It's a sin to kill a mockingbird. That's so shoot all the blue jays you want. Well, don't go shoot people. I'm not talking about that. I don't know if the analogy works. Let's go to the next page. That's the last heavy thing I say today. Perspective, seeing the big picture. You're not married to a narrative. People are married to a narrative. When objective truth comes in that interrupts that narrative, they reject the truth and they stay focused on the narrative. Okay? Having a sense of purpose and direction in your work, life, and play. Staying in the present by valuing the past. There's a difference between being informed by the past and driven by it. Okay? It's not when you have an opinion that's the problem, it's when your opinion has you. And knowing where you've been and where you are going. sort of like autonomy in a way. But what must you do to stay in balance to keep a healthy perspective? For me, I have to listen to people I don't agree with. And I have to listen to people I don't want to listen to. Okay? But that's the only way I'm going to stay in business, to be quite honest with you. But what I would like you to do is just spend 2 minutes. What can you do? Remember balance, rust out, not caring, obsessed with it, your own truth, without looking at some other truths, whatever it may be. Go ahead and take 2 minutes. What must you do to get in balance? Or stay in balance if you're already there. It's a little harder one to think through. Okay. Can you hear me? Is my audio still okay? Okay. I don't know what happened here. I've been talking to this computer all day. Never mind. Health and tone, the last one. That's having a good sense of your physical self, feeling good about how you look, not what others tell you should look like, but how you feel. Having a healthy, a healthy feeling about your weight, your fitness and energy level, and knowing that you're making the right choices to keep or improve your fitness and health. And if you have health issues now, what you can do to take care of those as best you can. Everybody has a different situation. Balance, rust out. Okay, that's the couch potato. If you go back to fitness, if you go back to health, there's by the way, just in terms of fitness, how many here do things to stay physically fit? Okay. And I'm not a doctor, but there's a difference between fitness, being fit, and being healthy. You can be fit and not healthy. The Bible of running, way back when, still is, quite honestly, by a guy named Jim Fixx, F-I-X-X. Okay, and he died. Complete Guide to Running. I can't remember exact title. In fact, it's over on the shelf. But he died while running, and not from running. In fact, if he would have had a treadmill test, they would have discovered the heart disease that he had. And so again, it's when I get into this fitness stuff, and make sure that you check your health and don't confuse the two. Okay, but the couch potato thing is over here. Over here, I say, in the sense of couch potato. Rust out is doing too much of it and getting burnt out. What must you do to stay in balance or have some moderation in the way you approach fitness issues, health issues. That could be eating, okay? Those kinds of things. Go ahead and I'm gonna give you a little time to think about that, a couple minutes. You may be in balance now. Are you making excuses for not doing it? What's going on? Go ahead. Okay, got some things? You can think about fitness and health perspective, work, play, family. These all merge together. But it's important, I think, to some form of recreation. Like when I go out and take a walk, especially when I do a little jog, and I jog real slow. In fact, I have a running hat that's got a penguin on the back. It says "waddle on." Okay, so when I'm out there waddling, because my ego isn't tied to it anymore. When I was younger, it was. When I'm out there waddling, sometimes I'm rarely thinking negative stuff. I don't know why. Or if you go bowling, or you can't go bowling now, I guess they're closed, but something recreational, sometimes it gets your mind off the kinds of things that maybe needs to get off of. And that's why exercise is so important. I want to share something with you because somebody asked me this this morning. Just a little exercise program. Always get a checkup. Okay, always get a checkup. But let me see if I can. And I do this. I even did this when even when I was in marathon shape. I'm going to put 15 seconds. And then I'm going to put 45 seconds. That equals a minute. 20, 40, 25, 35. These are all seconds. 30, and each one add up to a minute. 30, and the last one is 35. 20, 35, and 25. And if you add these up, that's 5 minutes. Times, in the beginning, 4. And that equals 20 minutes. I'm doing this now because I have I've rested my knee. It's getting back. I knew what to do. But the 15 seconds is if you haven't done anything aerobic, just try this. Go out and either do this, a brisk walk or a slow jog for 15 seconds. Take your watch, 15 seconds, and then a slow walk or a slower walk for 45 seconds. Okay? If you're already running a little bit, you want to get back in shape, 15-second run, and then maybe a 45-second brisk walk. But the point is that that 45 seconds should be slower than the 15. So it could be a brisk walk, 45-second slow walk. Then 20-second brisk walk, 40 seconds slower, 25 brisk, 35 slower, 30 brisk, 30 slower, 35 brisk, 25 slower. Or if it's a jog, then a walk, okay? That kind of thing. Sometimes when I was in shape, I would do 15 seconds fast and then, slower, that kind of thing. Fast by my standards. But really starting out with a walk. Because one of the things you want to do is make sure you stay focused on your heart rate and you don't go too far. The old adage is your heart rate should be 220 minus your age, whatever that equals, times 75%. Whoops. Times 75%. So if 220 minus my age equaled 150, it doesn't, thank goodness. Well, maybe it does. Anyway, 220 minus my age equals 150. Then I take 75% of 150 and I don't let my heart rate get over that. But check standards. That's my rule. That's not necessarily the best rule for everybody. But what I'm trying to do is people go out and they exercise and they kill themselves. I mean, not die, but they just, I'm not going to go do that again. But if you start out slow and you do this for 20 minutes and try to get up to 30 minutes and just do that 3 times a week, 4 times a week, every other day, because you want your body to recover and things like that. And make it easy and do it somewhere you could, do it somewhere where you like to be, down at the ocean or whatever, around the track at the college. But 15, 45, 20, that's 5 minutes, a 5-minute iteration. And then I take my pulse after each 5 minutes. And then at the end, I make sure I have at least a 5-minute cool down to get my heart back to resting. And see, with my knee now, I'm doing walking. And I'm doing a brisk walk and a slow walk because I can do it with this brace and I'm not hurting my knee. If I went out and ran, I'd probably re-injure it. So again, do what you need to do, but get some kind of exercise, because I do believe, and you don't have to do this, go bowling. Do something that gets your mind off crud, because perspective and autonomy start to reappear. Unless you got to bowl 300 every time, then you're too far over, okay? Just a little thought, something like that. And there's plenty of books on exercise, fitness, eating healthy, those kinds of things that might create some ideas for you. I do have on page 14 just 12 things, and you don't have to, I don't do all of these at once, but it could be some ways to get back in balance. And I have 12 that deal with all 4, the perspective, autonomy, and those kinds of things. And pick one maybe that you need to work on and put it in your balance sheet. Don't pick all 12 at once, and work on that one and lead to another one and lead to another one, okay? Then eat right. Thank goodness for my wife, but I love Hamburger Helper, okay? And I don't know if that's good stuff, but anyway. The last handout in here I got from by a reporter named Loma O'Connor from the San Jose Mercury News. It's been around a while. And it's a code of ethics for the workplace. And I just thought maybe it would be something you could take a look at, and it might help you with balance and that life is a rough draft stuff. I've always just liked it, and I don't always practice it because I have my flaws, but life is a rough draft, right? So. Well, I tell you what, that's my story. I tell you more, but I don't know anymore. So if you don't have any comments or questions, you're free to move about the cabin. I know that's a whole bunch of stuff and it's all philosophical and it's out there, but you put some landing gear on it with your own personal goals and we'll get through this pandemic okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Forrest. We appreciate it.
Okay, well, maybe I'll see you. We're going to talk about difficult bosses next Wednesday if you want. If you got a difficult, unless you're the difficult boss, maybe you better not go on there.
Thank you, Forrest.
Okay, take care.
Okay, bye-bye, Forrest.
Bye.